Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're continuing this friendship series and I brought one of my very best friends, Nairobi.
Hi guys.
And I'm going to put her Instagram below, make sure you follow her. So today we're going to get right into it and we're going to be talking about our friendship and how we became like the friends we are now.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's not a glamorous story. It's actually really rough, so we're just going to be really honest with you guys and really transparent of our story, and hopefully it helps you in your friendship, whether you need to let go of that friendship or whether you need to take a break or whatever that may be. So I'm super excited, so let's get into the video. So first, we're just going to tell us like how we met and what was our childhood friendship like.
So from what I remember, we met through school. I had transferred into International Christian School. That's where we both attended. And I met her in the second grade, and we had a teacher named Miss DeLeon. And me and her sat next to each other. I think the first day I came in, that's where I was seated. And then my sister was sitting next to me. My sister didn't like Katie's, but I was like, me and Katie just clicked, like, immediately. And then I think shortly after that, she invited me to her church. And it was like, I had gotten invited there before by my aunt, because my aunt was attending Emmanuel Church of God. But then
we didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know her aunt was coming
we
to
didn't
our
know
church,
each other in any type of way, no family thing, nothing. And then she invites me, and I was like, this is the second time I heard about this church. Like, let me tell my mom. And when I told my mom, she was like, oh, yeah, let's go. So that's kind of like how our friendship was like. It went from just being like I see you in school to like, okay, now we're like together all the time. And I feel like it was like that for a long time, like just going to school, going after school at the church together. I think one of our favorite things was to, what is it called? Like when you play like imaginary, like, or play when you play pretend. And she was like the boss 24/7.
I was always the boss.
24/7.
Always in charge.
But yeah, that's like literally how we met. And from then it was just like we clicked, and it was like years and years. Just being together in church and being together in school. And then even after I left ICS after 4th grade, she stayed there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was kind of just like, once we were at church, it was like, oh yeah, we're with each other all the time. And then I lived like 5 blocks from the church, so I was there all the time. She was there all the time because her parents are the pastors. So it was just like we were always around each other, and our friendship just began to grow like so like organically. Mm-hmm. It was even like ministry wise. I got involved in dance because of her. So there was like a lot of like little things that happened with those years of our life, because I met her when I was 7. You were 6 turning 7.
6
and I
probably
was 7.
turning 7, yeah.
Yeah, when we started school together. So yeah, that's like literally it just happened like randomly.
Yeah.
It was like crazy.
I remember the day she actually came to our church. Like, I just remember like, what are you doing here? Like, as a 7 or 6-year-old, it was kind of just like, my friend who I knew from school is now coming to my church. Like, it was just like the best of both worlds. Like, you couldn't ask for more. So I think from there, like she said, we kind of just like grew. We went into like, we served in different areas in our church, and between like our children's ministry, like our youth, dancing, like everything, we were doing everything together. And then it took a turn.
I think it was just with time and like getting older. When you're like a kid and you're friends with somebody, you don't expect things to change. So I think that like we were like really great, like 7 until like 13, and then 13 hit, and it was just like.
Then it was like guys came into the picture, and then it was like other friends came into the picture, and it was kind of like this bubble of a friendship that we made now is getting bigger.
Bigger, and then it burst.
Then it burst, yeah. Like, what we thought was like, oh, it's just gonna be perfect. We used to, like, me and her, because she's a twin, so we used to say, like, we're all gonna live in the same house, and we're just gonna come to each other's house. Like, we were saying all of that, and then it was kind of like, we got older, and it was like, oh, maybe that's not what I want, actually. So and then I think instead of like evolving with our age, we kind of just expected each other to be the same 6 and 7-year-old, and that wasn't gonna happen, obviously, because we were different people. So do you kind of want to talk about our teen transition?
I feel like, well, I'll talk about from what I remember, and then you can. Like, so we always had that, like, okay, we're in the same world together and we're working through this. And then we hit 13, and it was like, I think I had my first boyfriend first. I had boyfriends. Sure. I had boyfriends. Katie was like, how you get all these boyfriends?
I'm still asking her that.
How you get all these boyfriends? And I think it was like an awkward moment where like it was like 1 second where I wasn't really talking to anybody, I wasn't dating anybody at 13, and then she got a boyfriend, and it was just like, oh, like, wow. And I feel like for me it was different because it was like just only me having a boyfriend, and I'm a person that like when I date somebody, it's like, all right, you my boyfriend, but this is my friend, so you're gonna just have to take the back seat real quick. And that's how I was like as a teenager, so it never really affected it that much. But I think with her, like, it was her first boyfriend, and it was just like the way it happened, it was like so random. We went to, when it came to relationships, Katie's was like, okay, I gotta like zone in on this so I can figure out what it is. And it wasn't intentionally that she was ignoring me or like pushing me to the side. It was just like her figuring out like what this is, like what is it to have a first boyfriend. And so I was just like, okay, I'm gonna let you have your space because I know you never had a boyfriend and I had boyfriends already. So it was like
only 13.
Yeah, 13. I was bugging.
Yeah.
I ain't know nothing about no little boys, and they was acting stupid too, and they stinked.
Yeah, they did.
So
I feel like after that, and we're not gonna get too much in detail on that like relationship because we will be here for
hours. Oh my gosh.
But because of that relationship and just many other factors, I guess we would say, we kind of just like split apart. So that leads us to like me being 18, her probably being 19 or 18, and then after that, and right now we're 22 and 23. We've had like a rocky trying to come back together because it's like because of things that happened within that relationship
and not no like real healing happened. I think that's what happened too.
So it was kind of just like we would hurt each other for no reason. I feel like just because we either assumed someone felt away, or either I was supporting him in a way and not her. So it was just like really like messy. Very, very messy.
Crazy.
But I think I'm very thankful because I think because of that, like as you mentioned earlier, it's like these growing pains where now I feel like we're such on a way better place than we were before, and we're able to communicate better as well.
So it was just a lot of like growing and like becoming young adults, because our teenage years there was a lot of pressure from ministry, and I feel like that was one of our hardest like things, was like we have to be an example to these like young adults and people that are younger than us or the same age as us. We still had to be an example,
or older,
or older, and it was like, oh, that doesn't look good, you guys are like best friends and you guys are examples to them. And so it became a lot, because then it was like they always condemned us for liking somebody. They were like, you can't be liking no boys. And then it was like,
now,
you can't have a boyfriend.
Like, now we're single. And now we need to fight.
Now we need to
So
you know, you actually, let me stop. But it was a lot of, like, realizing now that the amount of pressure we were under, like...
At such a young age,
yeah, and ministry-wise, dance-wise, just all these different things. Having a boyfriend was not the ideal thing.
Yeah, and I think also, like, going back to, like, friendship, I think that we worked well when it was just us in this, like, little bubble, and then we had to learn to develop our friendship when we had to add other people in it, and when there was pressures of ministry and pressures of people cheating on us and pressures of all these things. So I feel like for you, like, whoever's watching, like, you may have a friend and you're like, this is not working, but I feel like I would advise you just look at the other factors that are probably messing up your relationship. And I think the biggest thing for us now is like communication, but it's also being like really honest, like, because there were times where we were just like, I don't want to be your friend. It's like, well, I don't want to be your friend. And then we went through those months of just not being friends and just being like, I wish you well. So we didn't get here, because I feel like sometimes like if people see us now, they're just like, oh, well, you guys have a perfect friendship. It's like, no, we didn't get here.
And I feel like nobody ever, like, I feel like this, like, time around, people realize that we really weren't cool. But any other time where it was like, oh, I'm not talking to her, it was just like, oh, y'all not talking?
Yeah, it's like surprise. Nobody
like,
knew.
I feel like we were really good at just being like, okay, we just need our space. Like, right now is not the time. And we didn't make a big, and I think that's an important thing about friendships. You're going to have moments where you're not going to want to be friends, but don't broadcast it, because you're bringing each other down. Like, it was just
and what would it have looked like if we went around, like, our community and be like, oh, well, we're not talking anymore, and then now we're cool? They're gonna be like, But I thought
then they would have been like, y'all toxic. Even though
Yeah.
it was toxic. We both admitted
No,
it
and
after a
I
while.
think that that's like a great point to bring up because I feel like we were toxic for each other. So I think a big point is you can have a toxic friend and maybe you just need space from them and maybe you just need to set up boundaries. And now to say, oh, now we can be friends because we do have boundaries and we do have, I understand, okay, this is your trigger, this is my trigger, so I'm not going to go there.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of it was just like learning curves that we had to learn about each other. But I do think that for our friendship, mainly, it was just like we had to evolve as like adults and be friends as adults instead of like, well, you used to call me all the time and we were six. Yeah, but I'm not
and
six.
I feel like that was
and
like,
I have
that
a
was
job
like
and I have, so I just felt like, and then like she had a job too. She was working until like 2 a.m. or something like that. So it's like you can't, the attention that you probably would have gotten as a 13 or 15-year-old when we were in church all the time is not the attention that you're going to get now.
And it was like so hard, like that transition. I think even before like having jobs, because as we got older, like I'm a person and she's affectionate but in her own way. Yeah. And I'm a person, I'm physically affectionate. So I want to talk to you all the time. I want to be like next to you. And Katie's was like, I need room to breathe.
I need personal space.
Yeah, I need personal space.
And I have to mention too, like Naomi's an extrovert. Like she goes into a room and she's like, oh, let's get loud, let's get popping. And I'm like,
like, are you ready to go?
There we go. Can we leave now? Like, it's too loud. So I feel like just learning that too. And now we kind of try to find a balance between that. So I think that that's also important because she may communicate by showing affection, by like talking all the time. And I may communicate just by like, let's just sit together and watch a movie. Like, that was my way of showing love. Like, let's take a nap. Or, let's go to the beach and take a nap.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably my way of, like, spending time. And her way may be something different. So I think also finding, like, that good balance.
And learning how to compromise too. I think that's something that we had to begin to learn because a lot of our confrontations were over like little stuff. Like in the beginning was like just little stuff like, oh well you do this and I don't like to do that, and it was like, okay, but we're friends. And I think for me it was like, okay, let me find a way that we can both blend. So we learned to compromise, and I think that's something that helped us even in our rough patches, was learning to compromise, because I feel like people only think that's with like marriages and stuff, but when you're with a friend, you have to learn to compliment what they like and they have to learn to compliment what you like. And you guys have to learn to compromise so that you can like go somewhere and not feel like, oh, it's always about you, because the reality is if it's always about that one person, you guys aren't looking out for each other's.
And then that's a toxic friend. Yeah, like that's if you want an indicator of what a toxic friend is, when it's all about you. And I feel like for me, I was that person for a while where it was just like, like I said, when we played games when we were little, I'm the one in charge, I'm the one. So after a while,
she used to beat me.
It was one time, okay?
She flipped me, but that's another story.
We're gonna move on from that. But I think now it's like, now I'm trying to like be considerate of her feelings and how would she feel if I did this, or and then also just like confronting things that are not easy to confront. And that's why now we can have conversations like, I really don't like this, and you probably don't have to change it, but maybe I just don't want to like hear about it, or maybe we can talk about this next month but not this month. I'm just not in the right space. So I just think just being honest and like being open to communicate when you don't like something is like was a major key for us. Because we communicate what we like, but what we don't like it's just like just keep it in, eye roll, like whatever. And that was like, that's how it was for a long time too, because even like just moving on from like how we were like teenage and like younger, communication wise, like as a big topic, when we were younger, it was just like we would get mad at each other and we would show we're mad, and we'd be like, oh, I have an attitude, and we would literally like be sitting like this and have the nastiest attitude with each other. And then we would just, like, look at each other and start laughing. And that was it. And it was like, okay, that's squashed. We're not mad at it anymore. And that's how it was for years. And I feel like once we began to realize that wasn't working anymore was when we really started to have a hard time. So many times where we just sit there like, yeah, this is not going to work. Like, I just don't like you. You don't like me. And, And I think what made it, like, sad, I guess, like, looking back now, is how much we, like, dragged other people into like, our mess. That now that we're probably better, other people are probably still struggling to either like you or struggling to like me because of, like, what we've shared or just how we felt or how we interacted with one another, that we're now still trying to, like, repair those relationships. Right. So I would just say, like, be so cautious, and sometimes it's just best to, like...
communicate
to one
what you
another
gotta
than
say.
trying to like bring other people in it and help try to
Right.
get them to understand, because then eventually you'll get over it and then those people
don't.
are salty now.
Yeah.
So that's our advice to you.
Yeah.
This video is like way too long, but I hope like we helped you, and I hope by our honesty you can kind of like evaluate your friendships and make sure that you are communicating better and that you are growing with each other.
Right.
And just be honest. And it's okay if you need to break. It's okay if you're like, for 2 months we're not going to talk.
Yeah.
Like, I just need to find out who I am.
I feel like for a year, like there was like a year, like even like it was this past year, like we were just not communicating
2019
like that.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was rough because it's like, that's your like when you have a person, like that's your person. And for me it was just like, dag, like I really have to draw I think we both understood we have to pull back, we need a minute. And it was like, of course, different things happened in between that time that kind of made it worse. And it was just like, oh my God, like, this is the roughest, like it felt like the world, like they say love breakup is a breakup. No, friendship breakup is real. The worst. That's like to allow each other to have friends. I think for me, I realized that I hate to admit it, I'm a jealous friend. I'm like, I want to know who this person is and where they came from. I have to, but just having different friends is okay. And that was like hard for me because it just always felt like I can't handle you having another person, because then that means that I'm cut off. And that's how I always viewed it. So that was like another thing too, was like learning that it's okay to have other friends. As you learn to communicate at a basic level, when you guys get closer and when years go on, when me and Katie's have kids, now we'll be able to have communication and be like, listen, this, that, and the third is going on, or being honest about our situations or how we're feeling, because that, I feel like that was always our biggest challenge, was getting older.
Right.
Because we didn't know how to be friends from 20 and up. It was just like, so we were 7 and it was like, okay, that's how it's supposed to be.
And you also have to give them time to heal and understand where you're coming from. So it's a lot.
It is a lot.
We don't want to like refrain you from like having deep and good friendships, but we do want to, I guess, bring awareness that
the commitment is serious.
Yeah, it is.
It is. And I feel like another thing too is like how you love and forgive that person. I think for me it was always like, okay, like literally I would always like put it on like, how does God love? How does God forgive? How does God understand? And the thing is, even if you're not a Christian, how would you want to be loved? How would you want to be forgiven? Right. How would you want people to understand you? And regardless of whether you're a Christian, regardless of what you believe in, that's how you have to communicate with in all spectrums. How do I want to be forgiven? I want somebody, even when I do the worst thing in the world, that they can still look at me and love me. I want them to be able to forgive me and not keep bringing it up and be like, oh, well, you did this in the past, because if they do that, they didn't really forgive. Right. And so that was like how I began to view the friendship. And even though there were times where I didn't want to forgive, or I couldn't even find it in me to find a way to forgive, it's like, just keep working at it. Keep working at it, because somewhere in you're going to find a moment where you're going to be like, you know what, it's okay. You're human. And so I feel like that's really important when it comes to any type of friendship, especially your best friend. You have to love them the way that God loves you, the way that you would want to be loved by somebody else. Yeah. Forgive, and literally is not, I feel like forgive and forget is not really like a thing, but forgive and let go. Yeah. Because... And forgive and grow. Like, I think just beyond just letting it go. Like, oh, well, it happened. It's like, no, actually, I do remember, because we don't have, like, amnesia. We do remember that these things happen. But to say, I saw this happen and I saw the effects of it. So now I'm going to use it to grow from there. And we're going to make... Yeah, we're going to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Yeah, right. So I just really hope... We got to end the video. But I really hope this video is some help to you guys, and just, like, a light... For those of you who do know us, I hope it's a light into kind of who we are and how we became who we are. And I hope you felt like we were honest, because I feel like we were in the best way possible without naming names, without putting business out there. But anyways, thank you for joining, and goodbye. Bye.